We should be live with you on Facebook. I'll give you a second for this to get rolling. Oh, you get your notifications.
I should share mine, huh?
Yeah, we just went live on the IndyWrestling.us Facebook page.
Got it.
So get your watch parties, get your all that kind of stuff.
I got it
going. That's why we have a soft launch when we do the live stream before we do the show.
I like it.
Yes.
Although it's gonna be weird. Look, see, I got to turn the volume down because I can hear you.
That's the other reason why we take a moment.
Right.
So when we do the super professional ones, that's why I have a little like graphic card. So just to be safe. All right.
There we go. Look, I started a watch party. There we go. So do I have to share it? What the heck am I doing? I don't know. You would think with everything that I do. Wow, that grew quickly.
Multimedia.
Yeah.
Extraordinaire, Bubba the Bulldog.
It always makes me laugh when people come.
So get your watch
party. Music questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, I really have no idea what you're talking about. And I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, well, do you know this song? And I'm like, I don't. They're like, you're on the radio.
Yeah.
I was like, but don't you understand? Like when the music is playing, like I'm working.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize that.
we're not like sitting back chilling and
it's kind of funny to me because and I love the music. Don't get me wrong, and I enjoy the music and all that stuff. But people are like, hey, do you know this song? I'm like, I don't. They're like, but you're on the radio. I'm like I'm really not that smart either.
Before we get started here, first of all, again, if you guys can share this, let's get some big numbers here for Bubba tonight. We do have a second interview technically scheduled at the top of the hour, but we'll go as long as we need to. He can wait.
Well, listen, whatever you need, I'm here.
Brandon K's out there. He says, Bubba, longtime old friend. Hope all is well. He was just watching you wrestle. We were testing a DVD.
In fact, I think Brandon's up there wrestling right now.
We're watching your match from Stomp Out Cancer right now.
Yeah,
I'm just doing some tests on some DVDs, so they're all running through.
You almost just took a nasty chair shot. I'm glad he missed. Shirley Doe just missed you.
Well, that's Shirley Doe.
Yeah.
In one weekend, my wife, one night he threatened to fight my wife on camera, and then the next night he just told me my camera was stupid. So
gotta love Shirley. Gotta love Doe. Gotta love Doe.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
By the way, good interview with him coming up on the Fight Society podcast this Friday.
Oh, very cool.
That Jim LaMotta had with him, so it was really cool.
Very cool.
Oh, we're not talking about that promotion today. I think I plugged them. Oh, I should have plugged them on the show yesterday, actually.
I'll talk about any promotion you want.
We can't talk about the one opposing where Bubba's going to be. Okay.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
So we will not put that over tonight. It's all about KSWA Fan Fest.
I'm open.
I don't even work with KSWA, and I'll put them over.
I am open to talk about whatever you want. Mm-hmm. I am fair game.
We'll get into it. So he said, "Thank God." I think to the chair shot.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Brandon K, one of my favorite opponents I've ever wrestled. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Favorite opponents. We had a match down at the Eastland Mall. We culminated a feud, and I literally, I don't ever want to hurt anybody, and the match involved a rope, and it was technically a hanging match. And it didn't go as well for Brandon.
Like
I didn't realize
to win, you had to hang your opponent.
Yes,
I
don't think you could do that anymore. But this was back in the day. It was Brandon and I had one of the best feuds. I remember we wrestled somewhere, God only knows where, and we put on a show. And at that point, Vince Kaplak was still around, mm-hmm. and he was with Brandon. And when we got out of the ring, he goes, God, you guys literally just killed each other. He's like, are you guys okay? And we're like, we just had a great match. I remember that.
All right, let me do one quick share here. I should probably share it on my own stuff, too. We'll get started. I'll throw that in for a Patreon.
There we go. Talking pro wrestling.
Outside. Go that out. We'll do this here.
Is this like the official pre-show?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, this is all bonus stuff that you don't get once the real show
starts. If you guys out there, please, if you want to like, heart, happy face, frowny face, whatever you want to do on your format there on Facebook. If you guys are on any other places, we are streaming to I don't know, at least 6 other places right now other than Facebook. Please go to the facebook.com/Indie Wrestling US, indiewrestling.us Facebook page, and that is where we are going to be taking questions for this. So please pop up over there, and I might keep an eye out. Maybe I'll pull up the Twitch while we're at it too. We'll have some fun here.
I love it.
Officially, we've had this is the 11-year comeback.
We need to talk about the fact that I literally, when we talked to set this up, you're like, well, you did the thing 11 years ago. I was like, what? I can't remember.
I had to dig for that one. I was just like, I know we had a conversation.
And I'm trying to remember, where was I? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you were on the phone. I was like, really?
Yeah, 'cause I'm like,
so the more I thought about it, the more vague my memory was. So
back then, I didn't invite wrestlers to my basement.
You didn't?
So
This
we were
setup
really
is
set up.
sweet.
So, all right, let's get into it.
Yeah. What do you want?
All right. Get the official record there. Audio's going.
You got lots of equipment. I'm appreciative. I like this stuff.
You should see when we do the live for wrestling.
That's crazy.
We take like half of this with us. All right. Hey guys, it is the Indy Mayhem Show. I'm Mike Sorg at Sorgatron on the Twitter here at the Sorgatron Media Studios in Pittsburgh, PA. And this is a show we talk with people in indie wrestling. If you look at our guest list, I guess, in the last couple of months, including TV world champions and things like that. But I'm very excited. We got a sort of a return, first time for the Indy Mayhem Show, but we talked to 11 years ago on the Wrestling Mayhem Show, Bubba the Bulldog. But first, some business. Please go check out everything at WrestlingMayhemShow.com and IndieWrestling.us, WrestlingMayhemShow.com, where you can find all the great podcasts, including past episodes of this and a lot of people we've interviewed over the years here and on the Wrestling Mayhem Show, including other podcasts for Fight Society, Rise Wrestling, Strong Pod, and of course the Monday Mayhem Show, where we've just been kind of talking about Disney Plus because that's how we feel about Raw right now. That's kind of where we go. Really big Lego report this week, by the way. Also, if you have want to drop a line to us, hit us up at goodtimes at WrestlingMayhemShow.com, 412-206-WMF0. If you have questions for somebody we've announced on the show, or because there's so much wrestling, obviously we can't get everybody or think of everybody that we should talk to. If you have somebody you think we should have on the show, please drop us a line over there or on our social media at Mayhem Show or at US Indie Wrestling, and we will try to get them on the phone, in the studio, go to them sometimes, whatever we can do. Like I said, back here on the studio, back here on the show, first time in the studio, as Bubba the Bulldog, right here, right across from me, on the couch.
Awesome.
How you doing, sir?
This is awesome. I'm fantastic.
I apologize. Last time you were on, also, we had Mayhem Missy, who knows your theme song by heart, and I think sang you onto the show.
Really?
If I recall.
Although I do have to tell you, especially working as a heel, having a customized. So I had it done for the first WWE dark match I ever did in my entire life. No, I take that back. So the first WWE match I ever did in my entire life, I'm the only person still alive, because it was me and Yokozuna against the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. First WWE match was a house show at the Civic Arena. Did you know this?
No, I don't know if we talked about this before.
Yeah, so the first WWE match I did ever in my entire life was me and, like I said, Yokozuna against the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. So I came out to Yoko's music. And then the second thing I ever did for a house show was, and this is a great story because it was Goldust working as a baby against Mankind, and I was handcuffed to Paul Bearer. Yeah, true story. But here's the funny part of it. Harvey Whippleman was sort of like the guy that ran around and got everything from Vince.
Yeah.
So there was no handcuffs. So Harvey had to run around and try to find his handcuffs, right? So he goes and gets those plastic handcuffs you had when you were 3 years old. But they
just have the switch to let it go?
Right. But here's the problem. They wouldn't fit around Paul Bearer's wrist.
Oh, no.
So the entire match, we had to hold hands. So there was a spot where Paul Bearer had me pinned up against the post, and Mick was running at me full speed. And obviously I pulled him in the way to take the bump. But when he took the bump, we couldn't hold hands anymore. So miraculously, the handcuffs broke. And it was a great moment, which, by the way, was the hardest I'd ever been kicked in my entire life to this date. Mick puts me in the mandible claw. I go down, and I hear Mick mumbling through that mankind mask of his, right? And the finish was the mask. But somehow I had to get the urn and throw the urn to Gold Dust, and he had to hit him. So he's mumbling something, and I'm like, then he's gone. I'm like, where on earth is Mick? I'm on all fours, and it was a house show, so there was no big pyro or there's no ramp or anything or stage. I look down the runway, and Mick is all the way by the curtain, and he starts running full speed. I'm like, what is he doing? He booted me in the head so hard that the side of my head felt like a Nerf football. And I'm like, when we get to the back, I'm like, dude, why did you kick me so hard? He's like, I was telling you to get back up. So, look, I get off on tangent, but back to the.
No, that's great.
So the first match I ever did for a dark match, I used Slam by Onyx, right? Which I think every indie wrestler ever has used at one point in their lives.
Especially coming through the 90s, right?
Everybody used Slam.
Yeah.
And they decided they were going to use me some more. So I got some, and I was like, well, okay. So I got some guy. He was a rapper in New York to cut the theme that I've been using. I've used a million themes over the years. I used "Hate Me Now" by Nas and all these different things. But when I decided that there was a chance that something may happen at the time, I wanted my own custom theme music. But people sing it because it's so easy to sing. So I'm working as a heel, and I look in the crowd, and people are dancing. I'm like, you're supposed to hate me. What are you dancing for? So that was a 10-second story that turned into 5 minutes about my theme song.
And that's how we end up with our episodes of this,
Yes.
especially when I have somebody who's been around for, was it 25 years?
So I
Did
started,
I get the right number?
So, yeah.
I saw you listed as 1995 when I was taking a quick peek at Cage Match or something.
So my first match ever was at McKeesport High School for PWX, and you couldn't even get in the building. It was me and the late Shocker Sean Evans against B.A. Briggs and Vince Kaplak, and we were. It was. It was. Jumpin' Johnny DeFazio was my manager.
Johnny DeFazio.
Yeah, he was my manager. The late great Pittsburgh Steeler Justin Strelzik escorted me to the ring. I had an entire posse of people. It was packed. If you ask Hank Hudson will tell you that it was the largest attended indie wrestling show in the history of Pittsburgh.
Really?
That's true. So
it
was over 2,000 people.
If you follow his Facebook, he keeps track of everything. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's what he claims it's because there was well over 2,000 people.
Hank is interesting, and we talked with him. I can't remember if it was on the show or if we were filming something else, and he is like. I feel like he's been there for almost everything significant in Pittsburgh wrestling history,
right?
And not because I was listening to another podcast where he was involved in something, a recent Gregory Iron podcast, and something in Cleveland he was involved with. I'm just like, this guy is everywhere.
He's unbelievable.
How is Hank still doing this?
He's unbelievable. And his facial expressions are the best ever, and his intro to wrestling shows even better.
Oh yeah, the knockdown, drag out,
pillar to post, and my favorite is kick. Butt wrestling.
It's so great with promotions we're doing some social media help for. We've been actually using his lines because I'm just like, well, they're so good. It's how it starts the show. It's what people are familiar with.
Don't you want Hank just one time to say ass?
We did.
You got him to say it?
Fight Society has been going this. We're just completely tangenting everything. This is what the interview is going to be, guys. Fight Society has been trying to do this hard edge thing the last couple of months, right? When we moved things at Friday Night Fights kind of thing. And one of it was because he legitimately, at the Beast Brawl, the benefit for the Beast, somebody said something about, he said the rules of the Beast Brawl, which is, a Royal Rumble kind of thing. And there was some specific stuff in there. And somebody's like, we know how a thing works. And he's like, well, that's not how this one works. And then they kept going on about stuff as I think Brandon was first out and maybe Dean Radford was the second. And they kept going on. It was like, it's not your damn night, asshole, or something like that.
Really? Not Hank.
Yeah, it was Hank.
Did he drop the mic?
Yeah, no. Wow. No, and it kind of became a thing for a couple months. So
love Hank Hudson.
Hardcore. I like to call it. I went hardcore Hank Hudson as part of Fight Society as the official announcer. So
that's awesome.
Anyways, that's enough about Hank. He'll get his own show.
That's awesome.
And that'll have to be 2 hours. Anyways, so you're talking. You're telling us about WWF dark matches and everything. Now help me with my context here. Were you on the radio first and then wrestling?
Yes.
So you're already a personality.
It was really hard for me when I got into the business because of radio. So I started in radio when I was 19 years old. And it was difficult for me because at that time, like, I was a radio guy who was wrestling. And when I trained, I tried to tell them that, hey, listen, I'm not doing this because of radio. I'm doing this because of wrestling. My dad, little backstory. So my father grew up in Oakland, and his father had a meat market on Semple Street in Oakland. So when Bruno Sammartino and his mom moved to Oakland, my grandfather, like, they didn't have any money. They didn't have a lot of stuff. So my grandfather would give them food and say, pay me when you can, kind of thing. So my dad grew up with Bruno. My Uncle Mike grew up with Bruno. So it's sort of a cool thing. So Bruno was always a part of my life in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I always had this passion for pro wrestling. So when I trained to wrestle, I would tell the guys, I'm like, listen, I'm not doing this because it's not a radio shtick. It's not a radio bit. I mean, if I can use radio to help promote a show, I will, in some way, shape, or form. Or if my presence helps draw people, that's cool. But you need to know that I'm doing this because I love wrestling and I want to be a pro wrestler. And here's a little, when I first started, half the locker room quit PWX. I don't know if you know that or
No.
not. So the PWX we started something called, we called it the Berg Brawl. So the Berg Brawl, it was all these wrestlers would come in for basically a battle royal.
Yeah.
And we started it out of necessity, because what happened was half the locker room quit because they were mad. And they were mad that this radio guy was getting a push. Right?
And this has been 90s at this point, right?
PWX 97 maybe.
Okay.
96. So
I
we
think
didn't have enough wrestlers
to
put on a show.
Yeah.
And I mean, I took my neighbor, who happened to look like Woody Harrelson. I took my neighbor, and we called him the Natural Born Killer because the movie was out then. Remember the movie The Natural Born Killer? We taught him enough spots, right, so that he could come into a battle royal and get thrown out of a battle royal and not get hurt. So we took people that weren't even barely trained at wrestling, because everybody was so angry. And these guys, by the way, in the years gone by, there's no hard feelings anymore. But at that moment,
this was 20 years ago,
right? So at that moment, they're like, well, who's this radio guy getting the push? And I kept saying from day one, I'm like, listen, when I'm here, I'm one of the boys. I mean, if I went to a show and nobody got paid, I didn't get paid either.
And we're talking about, like, these days, like, there's so much crossover. I mean, in the mid 90s, other than like Vince doing it, right, on WWF, like, that really didn't happen on this local level, right? Yeah.
It didn't happen at all. I mean, it didn't, there was nothing like that. And at that time, Jim Miller was running out of the Eastland Mall, and he was it. I mean, PWX was the only independent, and listen, you can say what you want. He's still running to this day. And listen, and the Eastland Mall, I mean, we did the idea of doing the TV show. So all of that was born into this TV show, right? And the idea was, and I remember when we were talking about it.
There you are, and I think circa 1998 at the Eastland Mall.
Where did you get that from?
Oh, we might have been digging through some classic stuff in the recent months.
Sean Evans, there's Shirley Doe. Shirley Doe had dark hair, and so did I. My God, look at that. Did I have a beard? Yes. Wait a second. Listen, I've taken way too many bumps. I do not remember ever having a beard in my life. I had dark hair. Forget the fact that I had dark hair. I actually had hair. But so, it was just an interesting time then. We had this idea and to run these shows. And I remember having a meeting with the TV stations, and I got it dirt cheap. And I said, we're going to run late. We want everybody to come home from the bars, have some beers, be half tuned up, and for them to watch local independent wrestling. And the guy that was, we called him the Doctor, the announcer. Do you remember him at all?
No.
So he was called the Doctor, right?
Disclaimer: I did not discover Pittsburgh independent wrestling until 2006.
Oh, okay. So
not from
there was a guy that we called him the Doctor. I played flag football with him, and he had this great,
That's a great connection.
over the top voice, right? And he didn't know much about wrestling, but he had so much energy, and he said things that like he had no idea a move. So like if somebody threw a suplex, I don't even know what he would call it, but he called it with so much conviction and excitement that he almost got like this cult following. And this thing just took off. So all of a sudden, people were watching this wrestling at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, half tuned up on a Saturday night, and it explodes. It literally takes off. And next thing you know, the houses, you can't even get in the building. It was a blast back then.
It sounds like a second coming of what studio wrestling was. I mean,
It was.
that went away in what, the early '80s, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
No, I think earlier than that. but I
Earlier than
don't
that,
know.
yeah,
Not that old.
the old WIIC.
Oh no, that was 70. That was so. Was I born like when I was like one? It
was already gone. Yeah.
I didn't watch as a kid.
So, but again, it's like it feels like this is this is wrestling town. I don't think you can call it anything else but that here in Pittsburgh. Know, by the holy crap, how much wrestling happens here on a weekly basis.
Right.
Not let alone monthly. To that studio wrestling era, to that late '90s era when things were hot with the Monday Night Wars, and you guys were right in the middle of it. I understand. One time PWX was in between ECW and Shotgun Saturday Night on a local, so it was like right along with that stuff.
Funny story is the funny story. There was a show that you could watch me on PWX, and then I was on Shotgun Saturday Night the same night. True story.
That's awesome. That's like I know like Facade did like Ring of Honor and Impact in 1 week one time.
Isn't that great?
Like in recent months because of the taping schedule.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's but to be like, hey, that guy was just wait a minute.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
And that ECW television programming was so different than anything else out there at the time, and the way that they edited it, and the way they showed it, and the way they featured it, it was just exciting.
Real quick, just a pause for a second because geez, a who's who of wrestling is popping up in the chat room. John McChesney says, "Hi, Bubba, founding fathers for life."
Yeah, right.
I was around for that. I was behind the camera and behind production on that era for sure.
Yeah, founding fathers fight. John McChesney, man, we've had these guys. This is a brotherhood. This is a brotherhood. Some of my favorite people. Listen, my best friends in this entire universe are professional wrestlers. I mean, like as a shoot, Super Hentai, Jimmy Vegas, Denny Gregory. We are the four of us are best friends in the real world.
I really, I got to be at Super Hentai's wedding. I'm just like, the founding fathers are here.
Yeah. We are. And our stories are true.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Brandon K saying the Doctor, what a gem.
So he remembers the Doctor?
He remembers the Doctor. BC Steele remembers the Doctor for 20 years. He's wondered where that guy came from.
Yeah, so he played. So once again, at that time I was trying to help. That's all I wanted to do was help. I wanted to. So I had to overwork to prove to the boys that I wasn't just doing a radio bit.
Yeah.
So I did everything I could to help. I did it's the whole Kurt Angle story. I remember Kurt Angle and I, Jim trusted me with the key to the back of the mall, and Kurt Angle and I showed up to train one day. Kurt would do a week in Stamford with Dory Funk Jr. and then he'd come home for a week, and the ring was pulled apart. So we had to basically rebuild the ring so we could work out for a couple hours.
So Kurt was building the ring.
Yeah, it was Kurt and I. We were the only two people there. We were literally the only two people. So
people were wondering if Kurt, he rolled in, he was the Olympic guy, he still paid his dues.
Listen,
to an aspect.
The funny, Kurt and I, I think his first match on pay-per-view was against Stasiak.
That sounds right.
Right?
Yeah.
It was called Meat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I think it was Stasiak. He did a thing with Taz for a minute. Yeah.
So the first match, and he and I had worked that exact match, so many times that I was so excited to watch it. And I was watching it on pay-per-view. My wife's like, and I was calling every spot, just making sure that they were crisp. And she's like, would you just shut up? And I'm like, okay. It was awesome. Yeah, so he did. Absolutely, Kurt Angle paid his dues. No doubt about it. 100%.
That's awesome. And it's amazing to kind of look at that and now his, post-career for him now, too.
Think about that. Yeah, I'm still friends with Kurt. Kurt's a great guy. I remember before he went to it. So Vince offered him a ton of money at the beginning, and he said no. And the reason he said no, and Kurt, if you're watching, I hope I get this story right, but basically, I remember we were sitting at an advertising agency down in the down in Station Square, if I remember this correctly. And if I remember the story correctly, Vince offered him a ton of money, and he drove. And on his way back down, he did an appearance at an ECW show.
Mm-hmm. And this was the infamous crucifix night, wasn't
Yes.
it? Yeah.
And he goes to me, he's like, Bub, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, they crucified a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And I don't remember who the wrestlers were. He's like, I just want an Olympic gold medal. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, dude, you're not going to make the money that Vince McMahon offered you. Mm-hmm. He did the TV thing for a while. And then later we talked and he's like, I'm doing it. He goes, I'm doing it. I was like, well, and that, like I said, at that time they didn't have, they would go to Stanford, work out with Dory Funk Jr. and come back. And, we did a lot together at the time. And he's a great guy. I mean, we had a lot of fun together.
Awesome. So, I say I think you have probably wrestled for about every promotion. Let's say every promotion that's more than 5 years old here in the area.
I probably have. The IWC thing. Mm-hmm. I think since the last time we talked. So, the IWC thing was there was a company called RTN Studios, mm-hmm. and they were developing television shows. And one of the shows that we developed, that came to me was this IWC show. We developed a show, a new show.
That's like when we were calling you guys Founding Fathers those years ago. That wasn't just a cute faction name; like you were literally there.
So, I created
at the inception.
it. So the reason it's called the International Wrestling Cartel mm-hmm. is because at the time when we started it, the television show The Sopranos was gigantic, and we thought the word cartel really fit the mold of what they were doing. So we developed the IWC for Dish Network, mm-hmm. okay, for the Dish Network, and for they were creating something called like the Man Channel. Mm-hmm. Now if I remember correctly, the Man Channel ended up launching on Dish Network, but I think it became Spike TV. It just never happened. We never got the deal.
It kind of morphed into, because I think Spike TV, like TNN became Spike TV at one point.
Yeah, so I don't
like the idea kind of just modified.
Yeah, but we were developing TV wrestling for Dish Network, mm-hmm. specifically for Dish Network, and we created this IWC International Wrestling Cartel. And we did TV tapings. We did a TV taping at their studios. Mm-hmm. In fact, we got two limousines and pulled them in as backdrops to give that whole cartel, that whole mafioso kind of thing. And then we did a TV taping at the Pepsi Roadhouse. A friend of mine, AJ, still, if he can find them, has all the beta recordings of the original IWC.
I would love to see those. Those got to make their way to YouTube.
You just can't imagine them, right? So what happened was when, it didn't work out. It just didn't work out for whatever reasons, business-wise. So they said to me, they're like, listen, we don't have the money to pay you for all your work, because we were developing other TV shows too.
Yeah.
We did a nightclub show called the Echo Lounge. So I was actually working for RTN doing multiple platforms of development. So mm-hmm. one was a wrestling show. One was there was a thing called TV One, which kids would watch in school. So we were developing like a news story for TV One. We were developing all these different things, right? So it just didn't work out. So they said, we don't have the money to pay you. And I was like, fine. They was like, well, so we're giving you IWC. So so since I saw you last, I was in my basement probably 5 years ago, mm-hmm. and I found a box. And in the box was all the copyrights, all the trademarks, and all of the logo rights for. And they did a great job because they thought they were launching a TV show.
Yeah, this was done by a company that knows how to do this for television,
correct.
Has everything locked down.
So they had signed over all of the rights of the IWC over to me.
Yeah.
So to this day, technically, I own the name, the International Wrestling Cartel, or the copyright. I don't know how that works. Copyrights, trademarks, all those kinds of things for IWC. And I actually found, I just showed somebody the other day, I just found on my phone the original IWC websites.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which are so antiquated. And the results are pretty cool. But I found them all. I found them in a box in my basement. All of these, and I found all the original logos. And it's so interesting. So they trademarked IWC, International WC. They did every element of it. Mm-hmm. Every element of it.
And that's you're putting money down on each one of those instances. We've done copyrights for some client podcasts, and it's like doing it this way, doing it this way, have the marks, send a piece of show this on merchandise to do that.
Yep.
And which was Well, we were talking 2000, about 2001-ish.
When I found it?
No, when you were originally doing this.
Oh, wow.
So that was like, it's not through a government website like today.
Probably if I had to guess, I would guess it would be about 2001.
Yeah.
So and the IWC just became. So once again, I just wanted a place that the boys could work. That first year, I ran as many shows as I could, and all I did was say, okay, how much do you guys want? So if a guy wanted, $50, $75, and I agreed. So if everybody said, all right, we're good for $50, $75, whatever that money was, I added it up. I added my ring rental in. Any fees are involved, and this is a shoot, and just for my time and effort for the show, I would put either $100 or $200 on top of it. That's all I made. And then when we first started, then we decided to do the Emerald Room, which is now that they just completely redid it into a big music venue in McKees Rocks, and Jimmy Vegas, God bless his soul, would go out all over McKees Rocks and all over wherever he could, hanging posters. Jimmy Vegas hung more original IWC posters than any human being ever. Talk about paying your dues. But the Roxy-Inn. Have you heard about the Roxy-Inn? Brand new multi-million-dollar venue in McKees Rocks.
Okay.
That was the original home of IWC.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So if any of you guys go nightclubbing over at the Roxy-Inn,
yeah,
you get a little bit of wrestling history over there.
And I mean, gosh, we had some, and it was a cool venue. It was a cool venue. We all changed on a stage. It was awesome.
So it went from that, and eventually this kind of mostly got handed over to Norm Connors.
Right.
Was I think probably the longest running. I know when I started going and discovering what you guys were doing down there. So that became like the bed where AJ Styles and CM Punks were coming through, and Samoa Joes and Christopher Daniels.
Yep.
So
my deal with IWC always was, if just give the boys a place to work. That's all I cared about. I was like, if you can make a fortune off of shows, make a fortune. But when you don't want to do it anymore, just give it to somebody. Just give it to them. Give it to somebody that will do the same thing. So like when Norm could just decide not to do it anymore, and then Chuck did, just give it to Chuck. Don't sell it to Chuck. Don't make money off that. If you make $1 million from all the shows, which no pro wrestling promoter makes $1 million off the show.
Let's be honest about it.
But whatever you can make. And when you're done, you don't want to do it anymore, you're burnt out, give it to somebody else. And then when they're done, give it to somebody else. So that was the mindset of IWCs. Just give the boys a place to work.
So it became a pro wrestling pay it forward.
Yep, that was the plan. I don't know if there's been any transactions differently then, but that was the initial plan on what we wanted to do with it, or what I wanted to do with. That was my vision, and I lived it too. I mean, because I've always been in the bar restaurant industry, and my door guys were always pro wrestlers. I mean, Corey Graves, and John Bolin. I mean, when I had a place on the North Shore, they were my two guys. They were with me every day. When my wife would like close the restaurant on the North Shore at midnight, Corey Graves would be the one that would walk my wife to the car. I mean, my mom used to yell and scream at them like, "You want to be a wrestler? You need to eat more." Da da da. I mean, Sam Adonis, all of those guys. I mean, I always employed wrestlers because I know how hard it is to make it, and if you can have at the kind of income, Gory. I mean, Gory worked for me in multiple occasions, in multiple locations, and I always try to give the guys. I mean, for God's sakes, Jimmy Vegas, I jokingly told him I ruined his life twice when I hired him he was my manager because I trust him. There's nothing more important. These were my guys. Like, I always wanted to give the guys a place to, say, okay, so you're gone this weekend, you can't work this weekend, but if you don't have shows next weekend, I'll pay you to run the door or do whatever. That was always my plan.
And that's always, I mean, you always hear about that. I mean, I think Corey Graves still mentions his days bouncing on his new podcast.
Does he
so
really?
I know he's mentioned somewhere along the way about paying the dues and stuff.
I don't know if he'd want to talk about it, but that's where he met his first wife. She was one of my bartenders. We won't talk about that one.
We'll move that on. We'll move that on. If Corey wants to bring it up on his podcast.
No,
but,
he won't.
Yeah, no.
It's all good.
But and we got a lot of people in the chat here. I know Nick's saying that about that Emerald Roxy-Inn being a concert venue is absolutely beautiful right now.
Yep.
I think some other people are kind of reminiscing about old PWX and IWC in here, it looks like. So Beyond that, let's say, and I would see you pop up at IWC eventually, and I was like, oh, hey, of course we had our interview 11 years ago, and I think we talked about this concept before. So tell me, like, what have you been up to, like, lately? I know I see you at KSWA, which are always a fun show. Somebody asked me, is like, when you're not working a weekend, why do you go to KSWA and just watch more wrestling? Because I just want to fucking watch wrestling.
Right?
It's just it.
So let me just tell you, I am having an absolute blast wrestling, and I'm having fun. I mean, I'm legitimately having a good time. The KSWA has this following that no matter where they go, and I think I told you this before we started, I think they ran 27 shows.
Ridiculous.
There's no other
Crazy.
independent professional wrestling organization in America running 27 shows. And the locker room is awesome. Everybody gets along. And I'm having a blast. I am having so much fun. And it's so funny. My brother's like, why are you doing this? My brother's like, why do you still do this? I'm not young. Although I feel better than I felt ever. I went through a period of time where I was really out of shape and I'd gained a lot of weight and I lost like 40 pounds and I feel better. And then he reached a point, he's like, you know something? Why not do it? Do it till, like, why shouldn't I do it? It's fun. And I told Lou, maybe at the last show, I'm like, whatever secret recipe you
Lou
have.
Marconi. Right?
No.
Or
Lou Martin.
Lou Martin. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I said to Lou, I'm like, listen, whatever your 11 herbs and spices are, don't share it with anybody, because you have got this cool thing. No matter where they run, they get great crowds. And listen, it's not by accident. They didn't accidentally become successful. They didn't accidentally, and Lou, please don't be mad at me if you're watching. I don't know how many years you've been running. They don't accidentally get this successful. I mean, the show on Saturday at the Spirit Lounge, they will. I'm assuming if it's like the other shows, they're going to be turning away hundreds of people. People will be lined up for this show, the Toy Drive show, this Saturday. 3:00 in the afternoon. So if you think you're going to be a worker that's going to sneak in the back door, there's no back door, and you better get there at noon for a 7:00 show.
So it is interesting, and I said this too. Like there's 3 shows happening Saturday in the Pittsburgh area.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody's going to see a lower house than they normally do because of it. Like it's KSWA fans are having this thing over here. Other fans are doing, other companies over here, and it's this really cool thing that happens. Like if one of you guys go away, I don't think you're going to another promotion, like fan wise, right? Because they don't know or care about it, Right. So it's this really interesting, like, everybody's like a neighbor and doesn't know they're a neighbor fan wise, it seems.
That's kind of interesting,
right?
It was, and by the way, it wasn't always like that.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, it was
just
like
seeing
that.
over the last 10 years.
I mean, there were poster wars back in the day where promotions were tearing down each other's posters. But the one thing I think that KSWA does very well is they create characters that people love. They create characters that people hate, and the fans don't. The fans just want to boo. The fans just want to cheer. The fans just want to be entertained. That's it. And that's why I love it. Because I'm not.
It's not overcomplicated.
It's not.
Like some of the promotions.
I tell people all the time. I'm like, let's go out there and let's tell an amazing story. Let's put on a great show, and let's feel this crowd. Like, I'm not one of those guys. Like, if you want to talk through every spot of your match, like, I'm sorry, it's not like I don't know what they're gonna want. When we walk through that curtain, I'm not sure what they want tonight. So, but we're gonna give them what they want, and I don't know that they want what you want or what I want back here. When we walk through that curtain, we need to give them what they want. And KSWA does a great job. I mean, I'm having so much fun, and like I'm actually excited about Saturday night. I'm wrestling Shane Starr, who I plan on breaking many body parts of his. And I'm actually fired up for it. I mean, because it is such a great time. It is. It's so much fun to wrestle again.
That's awesome. I remember one. I want to talk about this because I remember before I well, probably around when I started going to KSWA on my weekends off, I went to some old PWX shows, and I remember one time accompanying my friend from KDK and the weatherman. I remember his name was Smiley. Ron Smiley, and you were having a match with one Rev Ron Hunt, who I believe was also working at KDK at the time.
Yes.
So it was kind of a battle of the local media wars.
which, by the way, so do you remember that match at all?
I do. I was ringside for it. I remember a lot of it. I remember you guys getting at Ron at ringside and getting him riled up. That was a trip.
So the one thing I actually asked to wrestle Rev, and the one thing I was like, man. He's got these great pipes. He's got this great ring entrance. And I was like, but I remember saying, but once you enter the ring, you lose that at the time. Right now, this is years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like your character needs to be from the point you walk through that curtain to the point you walk back out through that curtain. Everything you do on the stage, on the ramp, in the ring, as you wrestle, has to be that character. And I said, I want to work him. I want to help him with that. And that match was all about that. About me being a guy that saw, and listen, maybe you could look back and say Rev didn't need any of that. Maybe my ego's saying he did. I don't know. But we told a great story. And when we got out of that match, both of us were like, dude, we just went 15 strong. Like we just went 15 legit strong, and didn't stop.
It was a very good match.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, because not many people say that about me anymore. I'm kidding. But so I loved that. Was a great match with Rev.
Yeah, and that was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Sure.
I was going to
Are you asking me to remember something?
No.
Good, because that's my biggest failure. It's remembering stuff.
All right. Well, hey, geez, the name's popping up here again. I'm going to go into some finisher questions here, but if you guys have any questions for me to pop in here for Bubba, and as we close out this interview, please hit us up on the Facebook stream if you're with us live over at the IndyWrestling.us Facebook page, and we'll be sure to roll them in here.
By the way, real quick, at some point before you cut me off and kick me out, I do want to share with you my proudest moment in professional wrestling has nothing to do with a match. So whenever you want to hear that story,
go ahead. Actually, let's go ahead and hear it.
So my proudest moment that has anything to do with the world of professional wrestling is Connor's cure. At the time, obviously, Connor Michalik, his mom contacted me at the radio station and called and told me Connor's story and said, all he wants to meet is Daniel Bryan. Is there anything I can do to help? And Jerry McDevitt, who is Vince McMahon's personal attorney, is a very close friend of mine. And I called Jerry. Jerry negotiated my first radio contract ever, and we've been close for years. So I called Jerry, and I'm like, can we make this happen? And I told him the whole story. And this was all happening real time, live on the air. Although Jerry wasn't on the air, I talked to him off the air. And he goes, absolutely. I said, you're going to confirm this, right? He goes, I'm Vince's attorney. So I call the mom, and Connor, we made it happen. And then Daniel did. So when they came in town, then Daniel Bryan did my show, came live in the studio. So told him the whole story. He had no idea. And then, of course, that night, Connor met Daniel Bryan, who was at that time tag teaming with Kane.
And that's the footage that we see.
Yeah, all the time. So they asked me to come down. I'm like, it's not about me. It's not about Bubba. It's about this little boy who's obviously fighting cancer and meeting his hero. But the coolest part about it is when I got and I know there's other people I've heard, and I know there's other people in the city that claim, and I don't know why you'd ever want to take credit for it, but we're like, oh, I started Connor's Cure. I won't say any names, but I got an email from Stephanie McMahon, thanking me. Saying she's like, I just found out that you're the reason through our attorney, and she sent me this amazing email, and then I ended up going to an event at Children's Hospital where I got a chance to spend some time with Stephanie and Triple H, and help them with some of their outreach and charitable initiatives. So the coolest thing I ever did in the world of professional wrestling, never had involved a match, was the ability to allow a little boy to meet Daniel Bryan, which of course since then has turned into what WWE has done with it since then is just awe-inspiring and amazing. The millions of dollars that they have raised is pretty unbelievable. So thank you for allowing me to tell that story, because I don't think anybody knows that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So now whatever you got for me.
Well, I was going to ask the best and worst about pro wrestling. That's usually one of my standards, but I think you just gave me the best.
That's my best.
That's absolutely the best. I mean,
Yeah.
be able to have that connection and make
Yeah.
something like that happen.
Yeah.
What is the worst? Let's go the other way.
Compound fracture of my right hand, bone sticking out, and I finished the match.
Wow.
I was working a show up on Mount Washington at a church. I was wrestling some guy under a hood. I used to do this Bulldog spot off the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
I did the Bulldog. My entire body rotated. All of my weight and all of the workers' weight hit. Boom, bone, boop, right out of my hand. And I finished the match. Like the bone was sticking out of my hand. And it was funny because, not funny, I had a Jeep Wrangler at the time, and my wife was pregnant, which didn't go well. And but I had to go do a radio station appearance. So I met with the doctor. He goes, well, it's obviously broken. I said, well, I can't go to the hospital now. So we took a Coke can and jammed it in my hand like this and then wrapped it up. I had to drive a stick shift with a bone sticking out of my hand. I went and did a radio station appearance for 2 hours that night after the wrestling show and then drove myself to the hospital. That's the worst.
That is, wow.
And you can't see it, but I still got the scar to prove it.
I was just watching they did the Untold on Sting's time in WWE and talked about that match with Seth Rollins where he like kept going even though he was basically almost was paralyzed.
Yep.
And they're talking about like that. They have this discussion there about this weird thing where a wrestler has to finish the thing, has to finish the job.
Is that
and
weird?
you finished 2 jobs.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I know. Yeah. So it is weird. I don't know. Wrestlers, we're a different breed.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that.
There's a reason if somebody isn't like kind of keeping up on the work ethic that they kind of get bounced pretty good. Awesome. So see if there's anything else here from the chat room. So what's coming up here? Obviously, you got FanFest as of this recording this weekend.
Yep.
KSWA, I know you pop up there.
Yep.
You still got a belt over there?
Yep. I not only do I have the I should have brought it with me. See, I didn't even think about that. Is that crazy? I keep it in storage. I have it above my mantle.
Oh, okay.
I really don't even
That's
have
where it needs to go.
I really don't even have a mantle though. That's the problem. So I am the so I was the me and Denny Gregory were the tag team champions.
Oh, geez.
And then we dropped the belts. He became the heavyweight champion. I became the 5-star champion.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was Bubba 2 belts because I was the 5-star champion and the Golden Triangle champion.
And I think I might have caught one of the shows with you guys as a team, and that is Lookout Crowd, because I mean the 2 biggest mouthpieces. Let me just say the 2 biggest mouths in pro wrestling around.
Yes. We have fun.
Yes.
I think KSWA management and ownership get nervous when we're together, but it's a good kind of nervous. So then I dropped the 5-star. I'm the Golden Triangle champion, and I've had a blast doing it. It's sort of coming full circle this Saturday night at FanFest down in Lawrenceville. KSWA.net, by the way, because I'm wrestling Shane Starr, who, by the way, to go full circle, he is one of the guys that beat Denny and I for the tag team belts. So this is a match 1.5 years in the making. So and it's gonna be a great match. I mean, if you like watching him get hurt.
Always a good time out there. We got a comment out here from Aaron Lester. Bubba put Pittsburgh pro wrestling on the map in the 90s, in my opinion.
Well, thank you.
There
Very
you
kind.
go.
I don't know necessarily that I did that, but I kind of brought some attention to something I loved. And once again, to go full circle to the beginning of the interview, I was a radio guy and I was a wrestler. And I didn't want anybody to when I was doing radio, I was doing radio. When I was doing wrestling, I was doing wrestling. But if somehow my presence in wrestling as the radio guy could help wrestling, and Aaron, if you think I was a part of the resurgence, I appreciate that, and I'm humbled by that.
Let me ask you that. How much does wrestling come up on your radio show?
A lot.
A lot?
So I don't have any real talent. I don't. I'm just me. So the guy that's sitting here on this amazing couch talking to you now is the same guy that'll be talking on the radio tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. The only thing I have is me, and I'm honest, I'm transparent. I am who I am. So if it's happening in my real life, it's happening on my radio show with Melanie. And it's kind of cool because wrestling's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my life for years. So it's a part of the show. Melanie gives me a hard time. I tried to get her to be my manager for my match on Saturday, and she shot me down. That's why I don't like her.
Why would somebody not want to be out there?
Right.
I mean, right?
Especially for this show.
Yeah.
Standing room only
Come
crowd.
out there
The
in front of-
energy. Listen, the energy in the building on Saturday is going to be insane from the first bell to the last bell. So much fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, please go check that out. Consider KSWA amongst the many, many choices on Saturday night. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. And Hank Hudson has appeared in the chat room.
No, he hasn't.
Yes, he just popped up. We were just talking about you at the top of the show.
Hank Hudson is my hero. Hank Hudson. Hank Hudson was in one angle at an original IWC show. I asked him about it. He doesn't really remember it. I had a friend of mine dress up as the Easter Bunny because the show was out in McKees Rocks right around Easter time. He came out as the Easter Bunny, and I think he gave either Hank Hudson gave the Easter Bunny a low blow, or the Easter Bunny gave Hank Hudson a low blow. I don't remember which way it went, but my God. Then Hank Hudson got mad at me because then he claimed I replaced him with my buddy as an announcer, but it was all part of an angle. I love it. Hank Hudson, you're the best.
Love it. A lot of people popping up there in the chat room. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Again, you're all over the place. Where can people see you? Online, on the radio, whatever media you're on these days.
Okay, so
here comes the list, right?
Okay, ready? So I'll make it as short as possible. Obviously, Bubba Show, 100.7 star, starpittsburgh.com. Facebook.com/starpittsburgh. Facebook.com/Bubba Show 1007. I've got restaurants, Bubba's Gourmet Burgers and Beer. I've got a location in Triadelphia, West Virginia in the Highlands, the Washington Brewery on East Maiden Street in Washington, and inside the Prinscape Arena in South Point. I'm opening up taco places.
Really?
And you're going to love this. Ready? Try to not smile when I say the name of my taco places. I'm going to challenge you. I'm opening a taco place in South Fayette, Bridgeville, and I'm opening one on Murray Avenue in Squirrel Hill. Okay? Don't smile when I say the name of the taco places. Ready? Lucha Street Tacos. Yes, right?
Thank you.
Lucha Street Tacos. That's the name of it. There's going to be masks everywhere. That's going to be the name of my taco place.
Have you seen the Lucha? Like in San Diego, there's a Lucha taco.
It's called Lucha Libre Tacos.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing Lucha.
But you're doing a street taco version.
Tacos,
Got it. I love it. I love it.
And at the restaurants, and obviously, if you're looking to catch me wrestle, KSWA, can see all the shows. I think out of 27, I think I made 22 of them. KSWA.net. I think I worked 4 matches in one night. How about that?
It seems like I keep missing you. I was looking forward to seeing you in March because I had heat with you on Twitter for a minute.
And by the way, I always say, have you been to a Brawl Under the Bridge show?
I have not. It's always something's going on or I'm traveling, but I see pictures from it and it looks like such a great event.
It is
the lights
unbelievable.
and everything. And I know there was a ladder match that had like Lawless and Yinza or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
And this year, it literally, I think it was a feels like temperature of 110, and I had to work twice, back to back. Is there anywhere else? So obviously, listen on the radio, 5 to 10, 100.7 star, Bubba Show with me and Melanie Taylor, who's amazing. The restaurants, wrestling. That's probably I don't know. I think that's enough. Right?
That's enough.
Listen, and I coach high school baseball.
Jeez,
I coach high school baseball for the South Fayette Lions. Yeah, well, we were the WPIAL baseball champions 2 years ago, and we're going to defend this year.
Nice. He's a wrestler, radio personality, entrepreneur. Bubba the Bulldog, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
I hope I didn't disappoint you after 11 years.
No, absolutely not. It's everything I wanted. So thank you, everybody. Please go check him out and check out all the promotions. Check out everything going on, again, over at WrestlingMayhemShow.com, IndyWrestling.us. I know there's got to be some Bubba the Bulldog on IndyWrestling.us
Is
over
there?
the years. Oh, yeah. We got some back catalog up there.
Really?
We got some Founding Fathers stuff up there.
Oh, I got to see that.
A lot of it's on YouTube right now. So.
Well, I want to see wherever you got that match with me having a beard. Where did you get that from? I didn't even know I ever had a beard.
Go look up PWX's YouTube. We got some classic matches that I was pulling a few months ago when we were going through those catalogs.
I got to see that.
Yeah.
And I know on YouTube you can watch CM Punk dive off the most rickety cage ever onto my body.
Yes.
True story.
Yes.
CM Punk, the cage was so rickety that the trainees actually had to hold the cage. And that was the same exact match where I accidentally threw the door of the cage into Norm Connor's head.
Yes.
It was an accident. Everybody wants me to admit that's what I thought that question was coming. Did I do that on purpose? And I'm telling you, it was a total accident. And I have no reason to. Norm and I are still friends. So I actually felt horrible about it.
I remember being told about that story, and then somebody put together, I can't remember if it was me or not, a video of that happening to Evanescence just over and over again.
Oh yeah, it was, and I felt awful about it. Yeah. And then, but that was a great match because it was Candido, Michael Shane, and Punk. But the reason Punk was even in the match was because Bam Bam Bigelow was supposed to be a match and didn't show up. Yeah, and that time it's so funny.
You gotta think in that era, somebody in that audience was disappointed that they got CM Punk instead of Bam Bam Bigelow. Think about that.
Right? Is that crazy?
What was that, like 2004 or 5-ish?
Oh my gosh. Why do you keep asking me memory question? It was me, Vegas, and Denny inside the cage, but the cage was
I'm just talking errors.
The cage was so tall and so rickety. And when I say rickety, just they couldn't attach it well. And when we were talking about it, and he's like, "I'll do it." And I looked at him when he jumped up there. And at that point, I was over as a heel, and the people were chanting "Die, Bubba, die!" By the way, and I looked up and I'm like, one of us is definitely not going to end this well, and we did. We ended fine.
I gotta say, just because I saw him pop up in the chat room, we talked about kind of that origin of the word cartel, which I always found a mystery until I talked to you that first interview. And I love that eventually we did get the Gambino brothers.
Oh, I love it. Gambino Brothers for life.
Gambino Brothers Moving Company.
That is awesome. See, I didn't even think about that, but
it came around. It took a couple years, but it came around.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Bubba. Thank you, everybody. Again, check out everything. IndyWrestling.us, WrestlingMayhemShow.com. We got many other podcasts for you to check out, and we're getting a lot of stuff in the can here, so you can have a lot of interviews over your Christmas break. So stay tuned for all that stuff. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, please support Indie Wrestling and terrestrial radio.
That's awesome.
So, all right, stream. We're going to be resetting the stream here for our next interview, and in a moment. I don't think I had officially